Okay, since I couldn't play them both, quick recap. This German order police had given the order to kill Jewish people, women and children, and their commander, Trot, and that's him in the center, the short guy there, gave them the opportunity to step out and not have to kill anyone. That's Order Police Battalion 101. You can see them drinking, having a good time. Right? It's like being at the chicken, except in uniform. See them working on a car there, whatever. Everybody's laughing, having a good time. This is a sports field, different town. They rounded up 1,700 Jewish people. Put them all on the field. Made them sit out there. It was actually really hot that day. There's more of them. Took a group of strong young men, a little ways to walk from the sports field, and had them dig a big pit. Here's actually a group of women they were making. She's not smiling, she's actually straining because they were making them run through the forest to get to where the pit was. You can see an order policeman up there in the top corner, very small in the background. Every one of those Jewish people, the 1,700 people that they rounded up, were shot and killed. Cold blood murder. This is actually a picture of a different time when they were trying to send them to a concentration camp, but they couldn't fit them all in the car, in the train cars. Has anybody been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C.? Been there? Have you seen the replica train car? You can walk through it. They're not very big, are they? They would cram hundreds of people in there. Well, they couldn't fit everybody, so they took them over to a cemetery wall, and they just shot them and left them. 150 people there, mostly women and children. Only photo that survived of this execution, right? Didn't take the time to dig a grave. Here's some of the police battalion with some Jewish people. Guy on your left there smiling, you go to the far left. Pretty big smile there. Here they are interacting with Jewish people. This is actually people who would prepare their food, they would cook for them. Okay? So they were okay interacting with them. But the woman on the right, surrounded by 4 dudes, is pretty much naked, just holding undergarments up over her. And you can see the posturing that they're all looking around her and even took a picture of it. They did not normally take pictures of them with Jews. In addition to killing, they would send them to concentration camps. Shove them on the train, and they knew exactly where they were going. One police battalion. There were almost 250,000 people in the order police, in the German order police. They had 244,000 policemen. This one battalion, Battalion 101, killed 38,000 people and sent 43,000 to concentration camps, resulting in a total death toll of 83,000 people. Murdered in cold blood. Why? None of them were required to kill. Yet only 10 to 20% abstained from killing despite given the opportunity not to. Why? Why so few? I'm asking. Why do you think that happened? Yourself?
Thinking of also being afraid what could have been done to them or their families.
Okay. Afraid of repercussions? Okay. What else? Lenny?
Peer pressure.
Absolutely. Yes. Zach, do you have a hand? Peer pressure. What else? Huh?
If like if the major trap is like the nice man, as the video has described, and maybe they do it because they don't want him to get repercussions from the higher ups.
Okay. Worry about the supervisor that they like? Is that, yeah, what we're guessing? Right?
I'm sure some of them believed in the mission, and that they thought that by doing this they were doing what they should do.
Okay. Yep. Good. Of those who chose not to kill, or killed and then stopped, no one was ever punished. There's not one single instance where those who chose not to kill were ever reprimanded or punished, to Aristotle's point. There was never a single repercussion. So why? Why were they doing it? Why do you think? You're touching on it, you're right. Why did others go along with it, Aristotle?
All the propaganda.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like everything they were fed, like just in the media and stuff. Like that they were doing the right thing, that they're trying to retake, take over, kind of Germany and stuff.
Okay, so the propaganda they've been fed for the last 8 or 9, 10 years. It was a transition. Okay. Most of them were older. They did not grow up Nazis. Some were party members, some were not. Taylor.
And probably like dehumanization of Jewish people, so they didn't really think anything of what they were doing.
Correct. Because of the propaganda, they viewed them as subhuman. But they were still right there. They literally had to shoot them. This is why the final solution happened, right? This is all part of it. But because of the psychology of actually killing other humans, it was wearing on them. So that's why they shipped them to concentration camps. And that's why they came up with gas chambers. One time in a gas chamber, they went back in, and a colonel who had been in the Nazi party for quite a while, well into the war in concentration camps, found a 16-year-old girl had survived. She was the only one, and she was still alive. And in that moment, he was amazed and actually had compassion that she survived. And then took her outside and shot her. The culture, the propaganda. Even though most were not Nazis, what they had been told about Jews had infiltrated their opinions. What else? It's on there. There were uniformed police members, supposed to protect, but everybody was in uniform. Everyone was part of that group. Kind of like you guys. Right? There's a sense of not wanting to disrupt the herd. I'm part of this group. We all together. We're all matched. And as you guys touch on, the groups themselves. Right? What they were told about Jewish people. So, how do you stand up and recognize when something like this is happening? How do you swim against the stream when you know something is wrong? Morally, ethically, legally? How do you recognize it? How do you respond? What do you guys do? What would you do? How would you handle this situation? Yep.
So, kind of when you first played that, it was kind of distressing, I think, because
I hope so.
obviously like to think that I'm better than that, right? And I think I am. I genuinely do. Sure as hell hope I am. But who am I to think that I'm better than those 250,000 people, you know? Like, in that situation, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of hard for me to, like, hear because, I mean, I think I'm better than it's 250,000 people going out there doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my initial thought.
Who else? What do you got, Casey?
It's kind of hard to say that. It's easier to say, oh, I would just tell them that like what we're doing is wrong, but like it's not that easy if you're in that situation. So
Why?
like, you are actually fearing for your own life or whatever it may be, and like whatever they might have been feeling that made them go along with it, like you could have kind of bought into, or you could have been fearing those emotions, or what could have happened. I mean, it's already tough enough to, like, I don't know, get mad at your buddy for going to class in non-regs. It's just like, whatever, man. But I know things escalate, but at the same time, it's like if that's already like kind of hard because you just like you want people to like you kind of naturally. You want to have these relationships, have these friendships, and if you were to kind of speak up for something like this, you don't know if those people are gonna cut you off or what they might do.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So we're worried about the repercussions, peer opinions, right? What your buddies think. Okay. What do you got, Zach?
I think personally for me, kind of like saying, once you cross a certain boundary, like one of those things for me is like messing with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's never gonna be forgiveness.
Okay.
There's never anything you can do to change that. And I think if you have already thought about that, already have that line in the sand, you're less likely to be swayed by outside forces.
Okay. Now, in this situation, it has nothing to do with your family. There's no direct threat to your family.
Right.
So is it what's the difference there? What's going to cause you to realize the
Like say in a military case, if your line in the sand is I won't kill civilians. If you've thought about that beforehand,
Mhm.
before you get deployed,
okay?
you can use that to stop yourself from doing things like this.
Okay. Okay. Who else? Thoughts, feedback. What would you do?
I think not giving in to groupthink and being able to
What would you do? Let's start in general.
discuss my opinion, stance like openly with my buddies. I mean, I'm fairly vocal and can be vulgar at times and all the bullshit, you know what I mean? And it's just minor core stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I think just being able to like discuss, I just like talk about it
Okay. So what are you doing in that situation?
with like that situation.
Yes.
No.
Why? How do you really think you would walk away?
So that's like in their position or just like right now?
In their position.
Yes, because of my morals.
Okay. Frederick, give your hand up.
You asked like what the first thing I would try to do is find my allies, right? People who think like you do. It's a lot easier to face injustice like the people who love.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that I could step away and not do that, but I never considered.
Yeah.
Especially in their situation, because hindsight is 20/20. They didn't know from that one day that they'd end up killing, or yeah, 80.
Yeah. Hairstyle?
Go off what Jerome said, how he said like how you would like talk to a group. I think this is a situation you talk to yourself.
Okay.
Because my morals, values, and beliefs are not necessarily going to be the same as somebody that I think has the same morals, values, and beliefs. I mean, you know, you could grow up, they could be conservative, and you still have different viewpoints on stuff. So I feel like it's something that, you know, something that you need to like take a step back and look at it by yourself without any outside source and what you really value.
Is that easy to do when you're in a group and all cohesive and part of that organization?
Never said it was easy.
Well, I'm asking. Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yeah. This is a quote from one of the police officers after the war. We police went by the phrase, whatever serves the state is right, whatever harms the state is wrong. It never entered my head that these orders could be wrong. Although I'm aware that it is the duty of the police to protect the innocent, I was, however, at that time convicted that the Jewish people were not innocent but guilty. I believed all the propaganda that Jews were criminals and subhuman. The thought that one should oppose or evade the order to take part in the extermination of Jews never entered my head either. This is after the war, when that hindsight is 20/20. So what repercussions were there? Trapp and his lieutenant, does anybody speak German? I think it's pronounced Draws, is how his name. They were executed in 1948. Not until 1964 were arrests made. Post-war processing of criminals took time, and there was severity, and there were targets who they wanted to process, right? Starting at some of the top. Right? In 1968, another 4 years later, 3 sentences. 3 of the people received sentences, 8, 6, and 5 years. I don't believe any of them finished those sentences. 6 were found guilty. This is the battalion, which is about 300 men. Okay. 6 were found guilty and never sentenced. They went on living the rest of their lives, as did just about everyone in these police battalions. When you read history, any history majors in here? I think I have any. When you look back at history, if you watch Schindler's List, all right, know anything about Anne Frank, or any point, right, where there's severe atrocities, the odds of you being the one to stand up against it are slim to none. Most of us would absolutely go along with exactly what happened, for all the reasons that we talked about. Most of us are going to go along with the group. We're going to do what everybody else says, okay? If it's right or wrong. This is a pretty severe case, right? Does anybody think that this wouldn't happen more recently? Where we are now, better world, United States military? Does anybody think this would not apply? Does anybody think the propaganda for World War II and what the Germans learned and were indoctrinated had the impact on them? What do you think, Michael?
I don't know. I could see some, like, we would like to say so, but I feel like we still get stuck in that groupthink mentality, or this, like, the organization, we kind of think, oh, it won't happen again, you know, history won't repeat itself, but
Yeah, Taylor?
So actually in one of my classes, we were talking about critical race theory.
Yep.
Random, because it has nothing to do with that class. But a lot of states are banning it in classrooms right now. So
Yeah, K through 12, you can't teach it in Texas.
yeah, so I mean, it's actually pretty likely that something like this could happen again in the future.
Iraq, 2005. Marines were out and one of their buddies got killed. They came upon 24 civilians, including women and children. The Marines claimed that a roadside bomb killed them. What happened was they were so mad that they lost their buddy that they killed 24 civilians, United States Marines. There was a cover-up throughout. Evidence surfaced. They were shot at close range. An investigation was launched. One individual was charged, and I think was given 3 months sentence, and I don't think ever served time. After that, it changed how the investigations were done, because the Marines all covered it up. A year later, in 2006, a feared and respected Marine commander, large man, said, "Kill all military-age men." So a squad was out, and they found 3 men using women as shields. They were unarmed. They said, "Well, we're supposed to kill all military-age males." One guy spoke up and said, "But they're unarmed. They are of no threat." They said, the squad leader said, "Well, we're going to let them go." So it looked like they tried to escape, and then we'll shoot them. And they did, and killed them. They were charged and sentenced. This became a group known as the Kill Team in Afghanistan in 2009. They had a Staff Sergeant Gibbs. I think that's a 15 or 16-year-old that he had killed. Him and some buddies started killing innocent civilians, lots of them, taking pictures, taking body parts, his fingers actually cut off, and he would keep them as souvenirs. This is a quote from somebody else, and he sent an email to his dad. "An innocent dude. They planned and went through with it. I knew about it, didn't believe they were going to do it. Then it happened. Pretty much the whole platoon knows about it. It's okay with all of them pretty much, except me. I want to do something about it. The only problem is I don't feel safe here telling anyone. The guy who did it is the golden boy of the company who can never do anything wrong. It's my word against theirs." He was actually charged and sentenced as well, because he didn't do anything about it, not soon enough. Right? Sergeant Gibbs, I believe, served 10 years and is out and has put his life back together to speak up on this stuff and what he did and what he went through. Right? But there were a bunch of them, and I think they had over 4,000 pictures. And actually somebody found them on social media. There was a family member and turn them in, which is how they got caught. Exactly what Aristotle was talking about. Here's the problem. We talk about doing what's right when nobody's looking. It's actually pretty easy. Can you do what's right when everyone is looking? When the group, when your peers, when your buddies, when your family, when your friends, when your coworkers, when they're the ones telling you to do something that you know is wrong, will you have the courage to stand up? It's the hardest thing there is to do, I think. One, just being able to identify the situation. How severe is this? Hopefully you're never in this situation. Right? Most of you are not going to the military. It shouldn't be this severe. Okay? But if you are, you're going to be faced with these situations. Okay? Even in the workforce, is it ethical? Is it moral? Is it legal? Are we doing things so we can make more money, but maybe we're trashing the environment and going against the regs? Are you going to be the one to speak up about it? And what will you risk? Mortgage, family, all those good things factor in. So you better know who the hell you are, and you better be able to identify it and stand up. Because most of us won't. If history has taught us anything, most of us will not. A&M talks about, I think, what's the campaign slogan? Fearless on every front. Right? And the core is courage. Is that one of the core values? Something about courage. Here's the difference. Okay? Unless there is the threat of agony, pain, danger, uncertainty, or intimidation, there's no courage associated with it. You're just doing it because you didn't know there were repercussions. If you're faced with the challenges, that's what takes courage. Right? Is there a cliff, right, that I'm about to go over? If I'm walking through the fog and I don't know there's a cliff, that doesn't take courage. If it's clear and I can see the cliff and I'm walking next to it, that takes courage. Right? There has to be some inherent risk for you to be courageous. And sometimes we can't always identify the risk. I wanted to bring this to your attention because these were absolutely ordinary men in the police battalions. They were not soldiers. Okay? They didn't go through the military. They had different training. They're supposed to protect and help people. Yet at the very first instance when they were supposed to do that, 80 to 90% of them chose to go against that and chose to kill innocent people. This is a phenomenal book. I actually emailed the author after I read it, wrote back right away. I got in touch with the U.S. Holocaust Museum as a resource, and they sent me some stuff. And they said, actually, there's a guy you can talk to who's an expert on this as well. And he's a professor at A&M San Antonio. And so I'm like, cool. So I email the guy, and he writes me back. Going to have a phone conversation and start talking to him. I'm like, so PhD, I look him up on the A&M website, older than me. I was like, okay, this is an old history buff. He's a retired colonel in the Air Force, right? And was actually in charge of basic military training for the entire Air Force for a number of years, right? Unpacked a lot of this, taught at the Air Force Academy, teaches lessons on this, all that good stuff. Dude was fascinating, super interesting, right? And send me some more materials that I can share with you guys if you want. Presentations they've done on this, getting further into this, different battalions who did more. There was another battalion that actually killed more people than 101. Right? But to think this won't happen again is wrong, because it will, unless you can recognize it, unless we see it, unless we identify it. Right? You guys have known peace most of your lives, really, and to be honest, every day we advance, this world gets better, believe it or not. More peaceful, longer life expectancy, better innovation, better technology, less violence, crime, war. Last couple years have been tough. COVID was different. I'm not denying that. You guys have been through a serious challenge. Now we have Russia and Ukraine. Totally unexpected, unprovoked. And then seeing all the repercussions that comes with that. It's on you guys next. And I don't know what it'll be. But no one saw 9/11 coming. No one saw COVID coming. Right? In 5 or 10 or 15 years, something's going to happen and it'll fall to your generation to fix it. Or deal with it. Or not. Which is why we talk about these things. I hope you know who you are. Okay? Aristotle, probably going to stand up, voice his opinion. God love him for it. Okay? But whatever your fight is, I hope you can recognize it and stand up. Thoughts? Is everybody just really depressed now? What do we think? Feedback? Questions?
This is kind of humbling.
I hope so.
It's actually, yeah, it's very much so because, like I said earlier, like I'd like to think I'm better, but just like you're saying, the odds that I'm actually better are slim.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense. But it also could be beneficial, you know, to think about these things while you're in this situation.
Correct. Correct. Good. Yep. What else?
Kind of reminds me of like it's a similar situation like slavery, or you've seen the movie like Dark Water. Small group of people going like having the courage to stand up against the massive corporation. Moneyball going against everything that baseball believes.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of two things that like if I were to put myself under those circumstances, you have to have like a massive amount of awareness, and then you also have to have a massive amount of courage to be the leper and say something's wrong. So
Do you have to have a mass amount of awareness?
a massive amount of awareness of like, wait, this is like my family, my friends, my whatever, this is wrong. So like go back to your slavery days. If we put ourselves in those shoes, would we have slaves? Probably. And it takes some self-awareness of like, wait, this is bad, and then you have to have the courage to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough situations.
Yeah. I would say that you don't need all that much awareness. You need a little. Right? I mean, in this situation, he gave you the out. That was the awareness. That was the small amount that you had to get out. You could have done it. And what a lot of them would do, so some of them killed it first, and then they would try to find up excuses, like why you guys back in and get out of PT. Same shit. Okay. They would go find other jobs, or they would wander off, or they'd go smoke a cigarette. They could see what was coming and they would remove themselves. So some of them started it first and then stopped. And there was never repercussions for anyone who didn't do it. Casey?
I agree with what you're saying about like it only takes a little bit of awareness, because I was thinking like in any of these situations, like kind of like this, you're just going along with it. Everyone's doing it. Why would you even stop to think that maybe this isn't the right thing to do? But it's just like that one little like thought in your head that starts the whole like effect of, is this really the right thing to do? Like, should I not be going along with this?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I just feel like those don't happen a lot of times, because if you never see anything different, why would you even question it in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Lenny?
I think it's difficult to like just step away, like in this situation, take me out, but it's another thing entirely to stick around and try to put a stop to it. So it's one thing like you're looking out for yourself if you just say, okay, I'm not gonna do those evil acts, but then to actually like you said, put your life on the line and try to put an end to it. And I think most of that is because a lot of humans are just like sheep, you know, they just like to be pointed in a direction, do what they're told, and that's probably because of like that whole group mentality, peer pressure, several different factors, but they just want whatever's easiest and most convenient.
Correct. Absolutely correct, which is the point of 482. It's recognizing the hard situation. Again, right versus wrong is easy. We know it. But the right versus right is significantly more challenging. Wrong versus wrong. Connor?
So
So with that guy talking about like, would you say that that guy, the policeman's quote, would you say that he just had no awareness?
Of what he was doing?
Yeah.
Oh, they were all aware.
Well, he felt that like nothing
So
was wrong.
you're talking about the post-war narrative?
Yeah. Like he was like, in my mind, nothing I was doing was wrong.
Why would they talk about this post-war?
To get my mindset.
Huh?
I think that after the war, that's when people start criticizing them.
Correct.
That's how
Yeah.
they start changing their minds.
They're coming after him. Finally. 20 years later. That's why the narrative changed. They were actually being investigated. So the tone changed completely from what they were doing during to what they were doing years later, so to continue to live free lives.
So do you think he was?
He's saying, he's saying it never crossed my mind. This is what we believe. I didn't believe they were human. So there's one instance where one guy came up to a captain and his wife. They were having breakfast, and he came up and he said, "I haven't eaten breakfast yet." They kind of looked at him and they said, "Well, do you want some food?" He said, "No, I haven't killed any Jews yet this morning." So it became an appetite for some of them. Lenny?
I think it like he's blaming it on like the propaganda, like he was brainwashed.
Right.
And I think like the
It's
problem.
Hitler's fault.
The problem stems years beforehand that the fact that they bought into the propaganda to begin with.
Correct.
It's much easier when you're seeing that on your flash across your TV screen or in these days like over the radio to recognize it's wrong then than to be in this situation. Like it's easier to just avoid the situation entirely. So I think the problem is they bought into that propaganda. They're susceptible to
Correct.
that brainwashing.
Yeah, and to different levels, right? So some of them were not Nazis, but still participated. Okay? Do you have your hand up? Yeah. Please.
To kind of go off of that, like, one of the things I was thinking of is basically if I had a differing viewpoint, nowadays you just get criticized for it. And if you speak up about something that the majority don't believe in, you get criticized for it. And so, like, I think it's that thing too where it's like, sure, this propaganda was there, and like, if they hadn't have bought into it, this wouldn't have happened. But at the same time, it's kind of like, not saying this is a bad thing, like whatever, but like everyone's saying like, oh, you need to like vocalize your support for Ukraine, like you have to say something, and then people literally losing their jobs or the company they own or whatever because they're not saying anything.
Yeah.
They're literally getting punished just for not like siding with somebody. So if I was in Germany and I was a business owner and I didn't say, oh, I support the Nazi regime,
Correct.
like I am gonna get canceled. So
Yeah, and canceled back then, I mean, they just took you out back and
Yeah.
shot you. It's a little more severe. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you look at what's happening in Russia right now, I read, if this is accurate, 13,000 arrests for protesting. It's illegal in Russia to protest. You don't get to have a voice. Yet 13,000 people were arrested for protesting, for their own country starting a war. Aristotle.
I was gonna go off the propaganda thing with like Russia and everything, because like example now, I mean, it may not seem like propaganda, but I feel like most of the people here hate communism.
Yeah.
But if you are for communism, you hate democracy. So it's kind of like an example of like how it is nowadays.
Yeah, I was in a bar in Spain. I did a term abroad, and there's no drinking age there really. And I meet this. He's like 14, and he was shit faced. He's hammered drunk, right? And he's talking. And I'm trying to get to know this kid a little bit because I'm entertained, and he's talking to his buddies and stuff like that. And he tells me I'm a communist, proud of it, right? And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "I don't believe in communism. It's never worked in history, so not really a great deal." He had never heard that before. No one had ever said that to him. I mean, he like sobered, like he blacked back in, like sobered up, like looking at me, like, what are you talking about? He's 14 years old. Taylor.
I think that you can not be on one side of something without like being that side. Like
Mhm.
the amount of times that I've had heated discussions with my buddies about the way that they thought and the way that I thought,
Mhm.
but we still come out of it and we're still buddies. And I think that having those challenging conversations is exactly what we're
Look, we've had conversations in here, right? And I don't expect you guys to, you're not all going to agree, okay? Because different outfits, right? Screw those guys. But you guys, you're all cadets. Then you're all Aggies. And you guys don't even agree. And we can get heated in here, and that's okay. But we should be able to have those difficult conversations, and they don't always happen. Huh?
So I was thinking that because when you talk about how after a war the narrative changes, what if, like, and as we said, like about Nintendo, what if they never ever know the existence of the other narrative, and
Correct.
that's why they believe that's a good respect. So does that make them a bad person, or you know, they definitely won't get pardoned for all their sins, but I can like put myself in their shoes, like if I'm just living in Germany all these years, I get put into the police force, they said Jews are bad, and then I've never heard anything besides Jews are bad.
Correct.
Then well, I'm supposed to believe it.
Right. You're right. So that's where you need to identify the problem, because even if you grew up there and you grew up in peaceful Germany and I'm going to be a police officer and I know Jews are bad, should I still shoot them in the back of the head? Hopefully not. Especially since you had the opportunity to get out of it. Right? Zach?
I was just thinking that, like in this case, as well as I mean, in some of the things we're seeing with like the cancel culture in America,
Mm-hmm.
that a good system of propaganda influencing people like this makes it so you can't say no to it.
Can't question it?
Yes,
Okay.
because the act of questioning it is so. Say I'm against vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an internship at TI this summer, so if I don't get a vaccine, I can't get that job,
Mm-hmm.
which means I can't get a job later on.
Correct.
So by simply being against something like that,
Mhm.
you're punished slightly, and you continue to build on that. And I
Mhm.
think that system itself of building upon it makes it impossible for the majority to fight against it.
Is it impossible?
If it's designed well enough that it works, in the case of the Holocaust, it was designed well enough that it worked.
It worked, and then it failed miserably
Yes.
in a giant epic collapse. And it shot
But it still
himself and
killed
covered in
crap ton of
gas.
people.
Correct. Correct. You're right.
And
Now,
that-
is it really, really, really hard? Yes. Not impossible. Okay? Because you can still get another job. And maybe it's not as good, and maybe you can't get to where you want to go, but you can do something, right? You can choose that other path. If you're against vaccines and you don't want to work there, I can go find another job, right? You're seeing that play out where they're actually rolling back some things right now. Like literally backing off of some of that stuff, especially with K through 12 and booster shots and all that. So it continues to play out of what's right versus wrong, and what is right versus wrong is totally dependent on their opinion, right? Okay, so
I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, it's more of a question, but like, I feel like we've kind of established this culture where if like you're working under somebody, like you're doing something wrong by questioning the things they ask you to do. And like, I feel like it kind of just, like I don't think like asking questions or just like moving whatever is impossible, it's not, but it's like, obviously if I
it could
wanna,
be really, really hard.
yeah, I mean, if I want
Or I can lose my job.
if I want to,
and I've got a mortgage and family.
I can't ask questions because they're like, oh, why is he always asking questions? Like he just doesn't want to do it, right? Like no, like I just want to know why.
Yeah, and here's where I run into, and it's the constant, any career field, I don't care what you go into, civilian, military, whatever, is we constantly have to innovate. If you don't, every organization on the planet gravitates toward mediocrity if you don't fight against it. Every organization, ever, always. This is why there's constant turnover of Fortune 100 companies. You can't always stay on top unless you're constantly innovating. So, to equate to your point, if you're asking the question and the answer, and you're asking why, okay, which is actually, there's a problem-solving technique called 5 whys. Do you have any ID people in here?
Kind of.
Okay,
That's
or
what
my
I'm
engineers, right, and you're trying to figure out why something went wrong, you can ask why, and if you ask why 5 times, you should get to the root of the problem, okay? It's like being a little kid, right? Why? Why are cows different colors? Well, they just are, okay, just shut up, right? But that's the answer that your boss will give you at some point because they don't know or they're not sure, they don't want to change. If the answer finally becomes like your parents, because I said so, the answer at work is because we've always done it that way. That's a shitty answer. That's the opportunity. Now, there are dynamics, and there's people, and it's hard, and it's complicated, and there's big organizations, right? And what am I risking, right? Am I risking my job? Am I risking my mortgage? All that kind of thing. There's a lot of examples I've talked about in other classes. You can have FU money. If you got money saved up to where you can walk out of a job because it's bad, against your morals or anything, you are ahead of 99% of the people in this country. Okay? Being able to do that is hard and rare. Right? I've been in situations where I had to get away from supervisors. I worked with a real alcoholic, which I think I've mentioned before. Not like go have a beer at lunch, like a genuine alcoholic. Okay. First I'm like, well, this is fun. Then it's not fun, real quickly. Okay. We would have staff meetings in her office where she would be like, oh yeah, that's a good point, and send an email, and we all had to sit there and wait. Okay, because that's how she operated. We all had to acquiesce to her. I would have my phone in the meeting, and she got mad at me for having my phone out at the meetings. Yet everything had to stop when she had to do something in the middle of the meetings. That's when I was like, ah, I gotta go. Okay, and then I resigned, and she came in. I gave my 2 weeks, and she's like 2 days later, she's like, yeah, you have to go. This isn't working out. I was like, yeah, I know. That's why I quit. But she was so upset that I had chosen to go a different path that she wanted to take it out on me. So yeah, it can be hard. And if you don't have something else lined up, then it's really hard. Yes, sir.
How did she keep her job?
Well, it was at a university. A lot of things you can do to hide. She did not teach. It was in development and fundraising. And at first, I didn't know. And then I was like, the coffee was like, there was a little whiskey in there. Okay, like as soon as it came in, whiskey in the coffee, that's what would like literally bring her back to life. Okay, and then by the end of every day, it was, I mean, same thing. We were in the same situation. It was not good. Okay, so yeah, and it'll have oil and gas. My buddy's a chief safety officer, large company in Houston. I almost went to work there instead of teaching. I'd be making way more money. Okay? Somebody got in a minor car accident. They give him trucks. Everybody gets an F-150 for work, and he backs into a guy. No big deal. This dude's making $150,000 a year. He's 35 years old. He's married with kids, mortgage. Okay, and he backs into somebody. And if you have an accident, you have to drug test that day. All of a sudden, this guy's dragging his feet. He's like, well, what's going on? Like, this is a buddy of mine. He's like, just go take your freaking drug test. He's trying to get out of it. Finally, at the end of the day, he does it. Cocaine. He had cocaine in his system. He's 35 years old. He's making a great living. He's doing fine. Same thing, he had to fire another guy who'd been there like 25 years, no degree, making a great living because he'd been there so long, really hard worker, was looking at porn on his computer right after he got promoted. It happens all the time. And my buddy said, that's it. I can't do anything to help you. You're out. So hopefully that was a better note than how we started. Cocaine makes everything better. Moral of 482. Okay. This was a serious subject, and I'm sorry if that brought you down or whatever, but I hope it was valuable to you guys. Okay. There's a lesson in everything. I hope we do. So it's spring break. Go have an awesome week. Enjoy yourself. Make good decisions. Be safe. All that good stuff. Recharge your batteries.
Do we have discussion post in next week?
You're such a good student. You do. Nobody else does. No, you're good. Go enjoy yourselves.